Hello, and welcome to Not Too Shabby, the Chimney Corners Camp podcast, featuring camp directors Shannon Donovan Monty and Abbott Pittman. In each episode of this podcast, Shannon and Abbott will share crazy camp stories, let you in on some camp secrets, tips, and tricks, talk about life at Chimney, and even pull the curtain back on how camp runs from behind the scenes. From staffing to activity planning to the friendships we make along the way, join us twice a month for your camp fix.
All right. Guess who's here with me today, finally? The telltale laugh. It's Shannon.
I'm
The
back.
people were missing you.
Did anybody panic that I was gone?
They always do. When the 1 second you're not immediately available and present, people are like, she's retired.
Which is, yeah, I guess that's a looming possibility.
In like 10
However,
years.
most of these people don't even know a time when I wasn't here. So
97, right?
yeah. I moved here February of 1997.
I was 5.
Bridget was just a year old.
Oh,
Just a little over a year old. How
That's
old
a
were you?
baby.
You were 5?
5 years old, born in 92.
I don't
I
think
was 4, actually,
yeah.
because I just had a birthday. Speaking of birthday and speaking of Bridget,
Oh, yeah.
do you want to tell us some exciting news?
Yes. Well, out to the listening public, Bridget, formerly known as Bridget Monty, now Bridget O'Rourke, is having a baby. I'm going to be a grandma for the very first time, and I'm super, super excited.
You're super sad. You practiced holding babies the other day.
I did. I hung out with 2 babies, an alumni family. If people remember Alana Clifford, shout out to Alana, who now lives in Thailand. And I was here for a wedding, and I got to visit with her 2 children who were awesome. So I hung out with a 2.5-year-old, and we read stories. Another interesting fact that this 2-year-old spoke French and English, and it was really impressive.
Shannon is amazed by this. She has brought this up now twice.
I know.
But
and then
everyone
also a 4-month-old. So that was good baby practice.
4-month-old didn't speak French and English.
And Bridget is, for the record, having a boy, which is probably karma.
For spending 30 years at the girls' camp.
I think the cosmos says, okay, Shannon, time to spend some time with
boys. Well, you got lucky. You had a girl.
I had a girl. I did. And that is lucky. But I'm also excited to have a grandson. I think that'll be fun too.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
You're going to love it.
I'm excited.
Well, congratulations to you and to Bridget.
Thanks.
And to Ryan, her husband. And you're all really excited. He's due when?
Right around Halloween.
Awesome.
You want another fun fact?
Yeah.
These maybe aren't really fun, but my birthday is April 15th and my mom's birthday is April 14th. I can tell you all kinds of stories about why that's not awesome. But it is awesome that, I was born at 12:30, so 30 minutes after my mom's birthday.
Oh
It was
my
very
gosh.
close. So
that's crazy.
yeah, it's fun.
poor
It's
mom.
a fun thing to share, except when you're an adolescent and you're unfortunately being super selfish and do nothing for your mom's birthday, but then expect to have an awesome birthday yourself. There was many a life lesson I learned about thinking about other people other than myself.
That's important that
It is. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Although I did not at the time.
You know, I think if I remember correctly, you shared that same story at chapel one time.
I did.
You don't remember all the stories you share because
I don't.
I mean, if you think about it, you've done so many chapels. I mean,
So basically, there's 3 per session, so
3 per
6
session.
per summer.
So
and then there was the summer that we had.
2021.
Yeah, where we except that would be the same because it was the same. It was probably less actually.
Fewer.
Wait, fewer. 4. It was less. Fewer.
You're
Sorry, I'm the English major. Yet
yeah, I
Abbott
have a
is
degree in
always
Spanish.
Yes, but
Oh, my
Abbott
goodness.
knows the language better than myself.
Better than okay.
Oui.
Anyway, I wanted to bring up the chapel thing because we had a request to talk about like our chapel stories.
Mm.
You and I both speak at chapel. I start, and in the words of one of our ad staff from 2022, I get up there and I rile the kids up. And I warm them up for you, Shannon.
You do.
And then Shannon closes it out always beautifully and is a fantastic speaker. And so someone was asking, like, how do you come up with your stories? And that makes it sound like we make them up.
I have to commercial break. Abbott is an amazing speaker, very entertaining, always funny, and just really well thought out stories. So
Thank you.
it definitely gives me a run for my money.
Yeah, but I'll never be as. Didn't you take a storytelling?
I did, and that's actually I was going to talk about that because I I have not always been a good storyteller.
Really?
No, in fact,
Huh.
I was actually told that I was terrible at chapels. Not here, but at my first job at Camp Jewel.
Oh my
I got
gosh.
told by my boss that I was just like literally a horrible speaker, horrible presenter. He was really building up my
Yeah,
self-esteem.
he sounds like a treat. A real
Well,
nice guy.
I mean, he wasn't wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you had to hear it.
And I was like, my voice would shake. I would do something where I would kind of squeeze together. So like I would tense up my whole body. So I'd bounce up and down and my voice would shake. I was just a wreck. Um, I was terrified of public speaking.
Wow, this is shocking. And when did the change happen?
Well, it's practice. It's one to be honest, and I being told I was bad at something, um, I kind of revved me up to get better at it. And then it's just tons of practice. I mean, I've been in camping for over 35 years, so I've had to speak publicly a lot. And so lots of practice.
I think I've told this story before that when I was in preschool, I wouldn't walk into the classroom because I didn't want anyone to look at me or perceive me,
Oh,
which is such a juxtaposition to who I am today.
right. It's
It's
almost the opposite.
it's
Look
literally
at me,
look at me, look at me.
No, I was the same way. I think that's the myth of people in positions like us that we're somehow just natural extroverts, natural public speakers, and it's not true at all.
No, it's not.
It was hard. It was took a lot of practice and a lot of, taking risks and being up in front of people and being terrible and being told that I was terrible. But learning through the mistakes and the embarrassment of, not being as good as you could be.
Yeah, I think that's really wise of you to say because I think that some of the people who might be listening might be like, "Oh, that yeah, they were just born,
Mm-mm.
good storytellers." And it's heartening to hear that you started from the bottom. Now you're here.
I did. And not only that, but I think we started to say a good friend of mine, Joanna Fishman, who's also a Chimney alum, got me to go to a storytelling class, which really helped me think about, how you set up stories, how you put things together, and that helped a lot too.
Is that when you started that your iconic? It was July 31st.
It was actually I think it gave me the idea, um, that one of the tips for storytelling was to very specifically frame when the story takes place.
Who, what, when, where, and why the inverted triangle of journalism.
Yes.
You're an English major.
I am an English major. Although I think you got a lot more out of your education than I did. Plus, my education was a long time ago.
That's
Um,
fair. So I always, you told me this, and you've actually taught me this because I do learn. You're not going to believe this. I do learn from watching you tell your stories that something that really hooks people beyond just like your iconic intro is feeling.
mm,
And like because people you can narrate all day. Like you went to the store and you were walking down the road and you saw a sign, but it's one thing to tell and it's another to show. And I think that with emotion, you're really able to show. And so I've still been learning quite a bit about how to show better in my stories thanks to you. And is that something that your storytelling guru shared, or did you just figure that out?
some of it was the storytelling, just about simplifying,
Oh, okay.
getting as close. He also would talk about getting as close to the moment as you can,
Okay.
and also being really specific. So that's where the whole it was September 12th, 1975 came from because it's real easy to say, oh, one time this thing happened, but
Right.
somehow like anchoring it in a time and a place gives it a little more reality. And it's sort of funny too, because it takes people a minute to think about how long ago that would have been. um, gives them a little. It's also now just a running joke, but then also to give a lot of give really specific detail about where you are. Like, did you smell something? Did you see something?
Right.
Um, like I remember telling a story and talking about the smell of Gina Tay, which when I was growing up was like the fragrance that everybody, all women wore. A lot of women my age. It was like a lemon scented
Ah,
splash.
of course.
So it was,
Jeanette.
there's certain things like, especially smells, for some reason, bring up a really intense
Yes,
memories.
smells are very closely linked to memory. In fact, I remember reading a test taking tip that if you study and you're like smelling like a lotion, like a lavender, had this lavender lotion my mom had given me because she loves lavender, and I would like smell that as I was studying. And just to
Mm.
be clear, the 2 or 3 times I studied, I was not a studious child, but I would smell it, and then I bring that lotion to like my Spanish class, and I would still fail the test. Yo no say.
That, it's funny that you said that. With my grandson coming, I've been thinking about things from my own childhood, and I bought Johnson's baby shampoo and Johnson's baby oil, because to me those are smells that are from, be like, they're probably one of my first memories as a child
Oh
is
wow.
taking a bath with Johnson's. It's all stuff that I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to use anymore,
Yeah, of
and I
course.
probably won't be allowed to have that anywhere near Bridget's baby. But for me, it brought back this really cool memory of just growing up and being taken care of by my parents.
And I'm sure, I mean, you have such a big age gap between you and your beloved sister that
Mm,
it also kind of reminds you of her childhood and being
yes.
younger and her birth and when she was a baby.
Yeah, yeah, that's a kind of a cool thing about because I was a lot older, not a lot. I was older than my brother and sister. Yes, I was responsible for taking care of them a lot. So,
I'm luckily the younger sibling, so.
what's the age difference between you and your sibling?
Avery and I are 2 years, 10 months.
Okay. Okay. And you're
Yeah.
the younger. You're right.
I'm
So,
only the younger in age.
in age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we joke. That's what we joke.
Does Avery remember when you came along?
Vaguely. They have like a recollection of being dropped off at a neighbor's house.
Yes.
But that's something I should explore more. But yeah, I love that, sound, scent, feeling.
Hmm.
Those are all so closely linked to how we remember. And as like I said, this was sort of a prompt that a camper gave us to talk about our chapel stories, and I was thinking about how we don't pick the theme. Sometimes we have a little weigh in,
Right.
but normally we don't pick the theme. The way that chapel works, if you're unfamiliar, is that 2 ad staff are in charge of it. So Gwen assigns randomly 2 ad staff to be in charge of chapel, and they pick the theme and they choose the speakers and they help the speakers if the speakers didn't prepare anything for chapel and just
Yep.
like ask to read a poem. But so we kind of have to look at into our vault of memories and good stories, and in a lot of ways you have to make meaning out of those stories that would otherwise just be things that happen to you that are relevant to the theme. So when I think about, for example, I think we had one that was second chances,
Mm.
and I think about how I had this insane jet ski incident that very well could have turned into, unfortunately, a disaster for me.
Yep.
And I had never thought of it in like a second chances kind of way until I really
Mm.
sat down and like thought about this theme. And I'm like, I need to think of something that would go well with this theme. What's a story that happened to me? And it's almost like journaling. It's like you're finding meaning in these things that have happened to you, and I've really appreciated that about telling stories at chapel. What about you?
I love that too, because you're right. When you have to, you get more out of the story from the telling by giving it meaning and reference to some theme. Do you know what else is interesting? about storytelling.
What?
When you're telling real stories, the more you tell that story, the more likely that it's actually deviating from reality.
Yeah, I've heard that. Every time you remember something,
Yeah.
you remember it wrong or like a piece of it.
Well, you just it's human nature to modify it a little
Yeah.
bit, but if you have a favorite story that you retell, it you will absolutely believe it's true though. That's what's really scary is that you tell it, and in each telling you might have, tweaked it a little to be a little funnier or a little, but in your psyche you absolutely believe what you're saying is what happened. They've done these studies of really intense memories, and they ask, these, I forget what they're called, like flashbulb moments or something.
Synapses. No, that's not right.
And but people will relay the story immediately, and then a year later they're asked to tell it again. And even things that are super intense, like something dramatic happening in a person's life, it will change significantly from the first telling. And people are shocked because they think they're absolutely recalling what happened. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's just a fun
Weird.
fact. But it's kind of one of those things about how we bring meaning to the stories of our life. And also that we just to have some kindness with people around the facts, because we all bring our own meaning to things and our own understanding. So somebody might be telling you something and it doesn't sound right to you, but it's not because they're purposefully not telling the truth. It's because it's just they've latched on to some different detail,
Mhm.
or but in our minds are really interesting things that can morph. But I can remember as a kid getting in a lot of fights about whether you were telling the truth or not. And truth, they learn more and more, is really a very relative thing.
Oh, yeah, that is a really good point. It is kind of how you interpret a situation or interpret a story. And it's so funny you mentioned like your memory kind of warps because uh, this summer Ryan, who was one of our intermediate unit directors, was talking to you, me, and the rest of the ad staff, and they were just like, she was just like, um, I distinctly remember Shannon that story you told about how your car horn would not stop going off, and you had all those sound effects. And I looked at her, I was like, Ryan, that was my story.
Isn't that wild?
How did she had to fully convince herself it was you.
Oh my God. I know. And I've been told more than once that I've said something that I'm like, I literally cannot imagine saying that. I've never even thought that. And the person, and maybe it's true, because I mean, I do know that I forget things, or
Easy to gaslight is what I like to call
I
you.
am very, yeah, for the record, I am very easy to
Don't
gaslight.
tell people that.
But well, I haven't. There's a very dramatic story from my childhood or young adulthood. I can't remember what it was, but we very early. Can I tell it?
Please.
Since we're on the topic of storytelling, we were home, and very early in the morning there was this really frightening pounding on the door, boom boom, and it was our neighbor, and I guess our dog had gotten into his garbage for like the 15 millionth time. And um when I told the story, I was like, oh, and my dad came down and he said to the guy, good God, man, what are you doing? And I told that story, and it turned out it was my mom that had said it.
Oh my gosh.
And I absolutely believed it was my dad, partly because it's something I could imagine my dad saying, maybe
Good
more.
God, man.
But my mom was like, absolutely not. It was something really, really different. And I've heard my parents tell stories about us kids, and they'll say it was one of my siblings when I know for a fact it was me, just, and it's really eerie, and it's so strange because you absolutely believe it's true,
Right.
but something got lost. Again, it was one of those dramatic stories where the more you told it, I guess the details got a little morphed.
Yeah, that happen I feel like that happens to me too all the time. Like I'll remember I'll get in fights with my sibling about this. I'll be like, "No, that is
Mm.
not what you said. That is not what I said." And it happens more and more, I feel like, as I'm getting older, and it makes me wonder, maybe I am saying these things and I just forgot.
Well, it's I think the more we just recognize it's something that happens,
Right.
and we give each other grace in that it's all in our perception and our memory. I mean, because it can be really disconcerting when somebody remembers something so differently, but
Hmm.
we all latch on to different parts of a story, different parts, because here a really good example of this, and I think people who are parents are going to know this. When you're little, when you're a kid, your memories are so vivid and so big and huge. But a parent, they're grown up and they're distracted and they have work and they're thinking about a million things. So, something that you remember as a child that's super significant, your parent might not remember at all. And it doesn't mean, it in no way means that they don't love you or that they don't pay attention. It's just that when you're young, your brain is just so much more impacted by what you see and it sticks with you much longer. And if you think, even if you're an adult, if you think about your strongest, most intense, meaningful memories, they're probably from your childhood or
Right.
adolescence.
That's very true for me, at least. Like, have very distinct memories as a child. And there everything's just kind of less distinct now. But also when you're a kid, everything is new. You know,
Yeah.
you've never experienced a lot of things before, and it's just all kind of happening, and you're like, whoa. And we're making really compelling points for journaling, not just for posterity, so you can be like,
Yes.
this is not actually what happened, but also kind of what we talked about earlier is like finding meaning in those things that happened to you, and getting time to reflect on them. I think that's the coolest thing about chapel is that you and I actually get to reflect on our own stories.
Yes. I think the other thing that I think about a lot, and it's something I worry about, is presence. That because of phones, because of
Mm-hmm.
technology, we are distracted. And the sad part about that is, and I've seen it in myself, it affects your memory. Like if you're not fully present, you don't remember what happened because you're not listening as much as you think. You're not fully engaged. And that's actually one of the things I love about camp, about chapel, is that we're so present with each other. So and camp we're so present because we're
Mm-hmm.
not distracted by screens, by life. And so it's real and it's connected, and it that's why I think my memories from summer are so vivid because there's just nowhere else where you're just so engaged and
Mm-hmm.
real and with people. And I worry about all of us that we're in a fog. I worry about some of my memories because I realize I'm not remembering because I wasn't as present as I could have been.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to digest, I think.
Sorry, took it deep,
You
man.
really did. And now I'm like, as like my phone is like next to me here, and I'm like
And
turning it over. Don't look, don't look. Um, well, as we kind of round off this podcast, I think I'm going to ask the burning question that a lot of campers have asked me, and I'm going to ask you: do you embellish your stories at chapel?
that's a great question. I and then I'm going to ask you that same thing back. Um, I usually don't. I usually don't. Although again, I realize I might not know, like in the telling, I probably have morphed it and there's
Right.
probably some embellishment that I'm not aware of, but most of my stories are really true and not and you know what I find is my story, if I once in a while I've added a detail or a character or something, and they don't feel as good as the ones that just are real, where I'm kind of getting my own meaning from and feeling
So
from
you
it.
make up characters. You're telling me you don't embellish. You literally invent new people for your stories.
I one time I I don't know
You
if
just
I
did it
oh I
once.
know I made I so this is a again I'm an English major, and I've made once or twice I've made a composite character, which where you take, like say your Uncle Joe said one thing but your Uncle Pat said another thing,
Hmm.
but you don't want to be bouncing around to a lot of characters. Sometimes I'll just make up an uncle that said both things.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
you
That's
know,
fair. That actually makes sense. Okay. That makes more sense. Yeah. I'll give it to you.
just to get to the point. I did that once, but generally I don't love doing that. How about you?
Do I embellish or do I invent characters?
I mean, well, so yeah, and embellish is different. I guess embellish is different than really making stuff
Right, or
up.
I would say like, do I make things sound more dramatic than they actually were? Yes.
Yeah,
But you have to.
you do.
Because when you're experiencing it in your life, it doesn't feel all that dramatic. It just feels like life happening. But when you reflect on it, you're like, oh, holy cow, that was dicey. Or
Right.
that was a crazy thing that happened to me. And so, yeah, I definitely make my stories sound more dramatic than they felt. But that doesn't make them any less dramatic.
Or also, they it's hard to when you're talking about feelings. Feelings feel big and it's hard to describe. So
Right.
in a lot of ways, that's how you capture the feeling is by being bigger and broader
That's a really, yeah,
in a
that's true.
way.
That's true.
But yeah, so I agree. Like the kind of revving it up a little bit or making it a little saucier.
You have to. I mean, you're talking to kids. They don't want to sit there and listen to you
Yeah,
preach about.
a snore fest.
Yeah.
Got to keep it. One time, I one time I was telling a story where
Oh my gosh.
I said I was about running down the soccer field, dribbling the ball, and getting right to a point on the field where this boy that I had a massive crush on
Oh my
was
gosh.
standing, and I tripped over the ball and fell basically at his feet. And I said in the storytelling, and I was paralyzed, and the whole group like gasped, and I realized they thought I I I was paralyzed with embarrassment,
Oh, right, right,
but
right.
they gasped. And then I said, with embarrassment.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
actually an awesome moment, but it kind of freaked me out. I didn't realize I had them to that degree.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you got to be careful with those hyperbole, with the use of
I
language.
know. It
I was
surprised me.
paralyzed.
Gasp
Oh
from the
my gosh.
crowd.
I love when they gasp at your stories, and I love like the tension you build when you go up and you look around and you smile at everybody and they're all like bated breath waiting to hear what day it was. Oh my
Oh, this
gosh.
last summer I did.
You did a recent
I
one.
told a story that had happened like 2 hours earlier.
Everyone gasped. The gasp when you said it was August 12th, 2025.
That's now.
That's today.
What's happening? I'm in a story.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I think coming out of this, I think a couple takeaways from this episode, which again is just the fun part of like getting to reflect and like speaking, because as we speak, there's more things that you learn about yourself and about what you can share. And one of those is that one, Shannon and I were not born good storytellers. We were not born good public speakers. It took a lot of practice and a lot of failure, and it took someone telling Shannon she was bad at it. And then also, I would say I recommend like reflecting on your memories, finding meaning in things that you otherwise wouldn't have, because you never know when you're going to want to tell a story at chapel or accidentally become a camp director and have to tell a story at chapel.
Yeah, but storytelling is just such a great way to bond. The other thing I have to say is that
Shannon always tells me make these shorter, and then she keeps
I'm
going.
sorry. This is one thing I don't want to forget is I was so lucky. I grew up in a family that told stories. And so,
That makes a difference.
if you when you're spending time with your family, ask people in your family what their stories are, and you'll be happy you did. Like ask your grandma and grandpa like what it was like when they were a kid. Ask your parents. Ask questions. I think we forget so often to ask people about themselves, and you will. And the older you get, the more you'll regret the questions you didn't ask and the listening you didn't do, because um, it's just so cool to hear about different lives and different experiences, and it'll really surprise you. So just take some time to tell stories as a family.
You should listen to Shannon because she's 98 years old. She's been around a long time and she knows.
I've lived a long time.
Well, thank you guys for joining us on another episode of Not Too Shabby. We apologize for the hiatus, but again, we do have a summer camp to run. So I think those 3 or 4 months where we're not online I think we have a pass.
That's right.
All right, well, see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.